I am Noel Mauer from Dubuque, Iowa.
And you are one of the members of the Slo Pokes from back in the day.
From the early days, the Slo Pokes was established, the best I can find out, we were about in 53 when it first got started.
And you came along
and I joined probably in 54. About that period of time is when Cordova opened up, and our club used to support Cordova. In fact, one of our club members was the flag man, and our people would pit and do the inspection on the cars. And before the World Series was brought to Cordova, it was run at Lawrenceville, Illinois for a couple of years by the ATAA, which is Auto Timing Association of America. And they run down there. I was down there 2 years, and then they moved it up to the World Series up to Cordova.
And that was an old abandoned airstrip, right?
That was an old abandoned airstrip without a tree around. It was pretty grim in the warm weather. My brother had come home with a 40 Ford Coupe, and he had a hopped up 51 Mercury engine in it. And he took a notion to sell the coupe, but he gave me the engine. So I was looking for something to put it in, and I had heard of a 40 Ford coupe with opera seats in it over in Darlington, Wisconsin. Looked the guy up, and unfortunately he decided he didn't want to sell his car. And in the process of talking with him, I said, well, is there any other old cars around? And he mentioned that in New Diggings, Wisconsin, a very, very small town. And I just happened to stop at a guy's house and said, is there a 32 coupe in town? He said, I used to own that car, but I traded it in at the Ford dealership, which my heart sunk. And then he proceeded to say, but the neighbor across the street bought it. I and my friend, Bob Willis, went over Sunday morning bright and early. And the gentleman was there, and we talked, and he said, oh, he was going to keep it as a hunting and fishing car, but finally he said, well, if you want to pay me what I paid for it, he says, I'll sell it to you. And I said, I'll buy it, how much? And he said, $75. So I gave him the $75, and we were going to tow it home back to Dubuque, which is, I forget exactly, but something between 20 and 30 miles. Sure enough, it took off eventually, and I drove it home. And picked up a 39 Ford transmission, drove to the house, and I had the 4-cylinder engine hanging on the engine hoist before you could actually lay your hands on the head. They were still warm on the head. And I dropped the 51 Mercury in it for a short period of time, and then sophomore and junior year of high school, I had taken woodworking. And in my junior year, they had what they called a vocational class, which was 3 hours. But he had told the friend, he said, boy, I sure would like to get somebody in this class that knows something about cars, and he mentioned my name. Having that opportunity, I decided I was going to chop and channel the car. In fact, initially, I was just going to chop it. And I went down 5 inches with the roof, and then I kind of decided the fenders were pretty ratty, and I just didn't want to have to mess with them. So I decided, well, if I didn't run the fenders, I wanted to channel. So got the body work all done, didn't have the car quite running, but by the middle of the summer, I had an engine in it, and it was running in primer, and then eventually got painted. And then there was a big car show coming up in Des Moines here, and a good friend of mine was going to school down here, and he set up a deal with a chrome shop down here to have plating done at a very cheap place. And he suggested that the Slo Pokes Hot Rod Club assist me in upgrading the car and getting it ready for this show, which was what happened. We built the headers, and I got it painted and upholstered and did all the things. Basically, the car is as it was in 1959. That was the last time the car was painted, so it's pretty much as it was. With the cowl, but I had the radiator cut down 7 inches, and so that I could keep the radiator in the stock position. Put a plexiglass top in it because in chopping it I had to move the front section forward and the back section back, and the center post had to stay the same. So there was a wooden rail around the roof opening where normally the canvas would be, and I had to cut that wooden rail, and then I went and put another piece of wood inside around it, and then closed the opening up about 3 inches and put the plexiglass top in. All the frame's original 32 all the way through.
And the front axle, how much did you drop that?
Well, I think that's a 5-inch drop on that axle. My memory doesn't serve me very. Oh well, the headlights. Back in them days, you couldn't go to the catalogs and buy all this equipment. So what the headlight brackets are actually the original headlight crossbars, which I cut off and reformed to bolt to the frame and mount the headlights in. The shock brackets were off of, they were on Ford pickups and also on like 49, 50 Ford cars. Of course, I modified them slightly and rolled them. They were too tall, so I had to bend them over a little bit to relate to the axle.
And then the brakes?
Well, the brakes are just normal 48 Ford drum brakes.
Okay.
And they are what they are. They're not as good as caliber brakes, but they do get me stopped. Both Offenhauser intake manifold and Offenhauser heads